Hey everybody, hope you guys doing alright. So here is the machine, or an invention for a machine, that do help with the separation of the bast fiber from the stalk. So let's look into it. Breaking-scutching machine, I think that's what it's called, is a scutching machine, I might have mispronounced that, for separation of fiber from treated bast-crop stalks. Alright, abstract. Field. Textile industry, in particular, techniques for separation of fiber from stalks or treated bast crops, preferably flax. Substance. Breaking-scutching machine has horizontal feeding conveyor with motion change over mechanism, braking clamping unit, pair of braking drums, pneumatic, excuse me if I mispronounced that, suction system, conveyor motion change over mechanism is connected to device for increasing motion of feeding conveyor during discharge of treated fibers from treatment zone in comparison with its motion during introducing of fiber. Effect: increased yield of long fibers from trusted bast crop fibers. And here we go. We got a little diagram of the invention that I just read off to you guys. All right, let's look into the description. The invention relates to the textile industry and in particular to devices for isolating fiber from stalks of bast crops, mainly flax. A device for separating fibers from trusses of bast crops containing a node for moving truss in the form of an endless conveyor and a pair of beat drums. However, this device is not equipped with a fire removal system which degrades the technology effective of processing. Also known as a milling-scutching machine for isolating fiber from the stems of bast crop trusses, containing a horizontal feeding conveyor with a mechanism for switching its movement, a milling champing unit, a pair of scraper drums, and a pneumatic, excuse me if I mispronounced that, suction system. The disadvantage of this machine is that moving the conveyor branch forward is equal to its rearward movements. Because of this, the processed strand at the end of the treatment cycle remains clamped in the milling clamping unit. This is due to the fact that when scuffling, the strand lengthens due to the migration, of fibers relative to each other. Mentioned known milling and bobbing machine in its technical essence is closest to the claimed and therefore is proposed as a prototype. An object of the invention is to increase the yield of long fiber from truss of bast crops. The technical results in a milling browning machine for separating separating fiber from the stems, of bast trusses containing a horizontal feed conveyor with a mechanism for switching its movement, a milling and clamping unit, a pair of scraper drums, and a pneumatic, suction system, according to the invention, is achieved by the fact that the mechanism for switching the conveyor movement is connected with a device that provides an increase in the course of the feed conveyor when the truss is withdrawn from the processing zone in comparison with its course when the truss is entered. This design feature is due to the fact that when processing flax raw by beating, elongation of the strands of battered flax occurs due to the displacement of the fibers from each other from the middle to the ends of the handful, resulting from their interaction with the edges of the beat. In this regard, increasing the length of the return stroke of the conveyor allows you to completely remove from the clamping zone the processed unit, which will increase the yield of long fiber. The invention is illustrated by drawing. Figure 1 shows a diagram of a milling and a bobbing machine for separating fiber from a truss of bast crops. Figure 2 shows a horizontal conveyor, the progress of which is forward and backward different. The grinding and grinding machine, interesting, consists of a horizontal feed conveyor. 1. A device for adjusting the stroke and switching the movement of the conveyor. 2. A grinding and clamping unit. 3. A pair of grinding wheels. 4. And a pneumatic, suction system. 5. The operation of the milling and bobbing machine is as follows. The stalks of the line's truss are laid out on the feed conveyor 1. Then, using the device for adjusting the stroke and switching the movement of the conveyor 2, they are turned out onto the milling and clamping unit 3. Moreover, when feeding forward, the right ends of the truss pass the distance from point A to point H1, and the magnitude of the conveyor stroke in this case is equal to H1. After crushing, the raw materials clamped in the milling and clamping unit 3 is subjected to beating by a pair of beater drums. 4. The beating waste is removed using the pneumatic suction system. After processing the butt portion of the handful with the help of the conveyor 2 adjustment device. The handful moves backward and passes the distance from point A to point A H2. Excuse me. In this case, the conveyor stroke is equal to H2, and H2 is less than, I think, H1. Turning over a handful, the apical, part of the handful of stems is similarly processed. All right, an example of a specific milling and bobbing machine. Handfuls of truss weighing 100 grams are laid out on the feed conveyor with clumps forward. Then the start button turns on the processing cycle. The conveyor is driven by an electric motor, the operating time of which is set by 2 time relays, brand VL66UHL4, all capitalized as far as letters are concerned. Relay number 1 controls the operating time of the conveyor driver motor forward, and relay number 2 controls the operating time back. Thus, setting the operating time of each relay allows you to sit the conveyor stroke toward 900 millimeter and back 110-50 millimeter. As a result, the difference in the magnitude of the conveyor stroke is 150 millimeter. Using the proposed device does not require large capital expenditures and can improve the efficiency of processing flax truss. So this is, designed for flax, but, I have to look into whether or not it can be used for hemp, but I'm pretty sure a similar machine or type of machine is going to be needed to separate or to help efficiently separate and help with the time process and the labor and all that of the separation of the bast fiber from the stalk or the stem. So, all right, I love you guys. Y'all take care. Have a good day. Bye.